Today I wanted to talk a little bit about carving burrs. Carving burrs. Alright, so carving burrs. I keep my carving burrs in a wooden box that I got in a Harbor Freight store. I think I bought some little grinder, tools, attachments. Wait, where are my carving burrs? Well, I don't know exactly where all of my burrs are. I think a lot of them are still mounted onto these die grinder, which, by the way, fun fact, the die grinders that I use are just cheap Harbor Freight die grinders. And they work and they work really well. Okay, there are 3 different types of carving burrs that I'm going to talk about, and each of them can be divided up into categories by virtue of how much material they remove, in my mind at least. So the first category removes the most material. I call them the toothed burrs, and these are the ones with the spikes. These are made by companies like Kutzall and Sabertooth. This is a Kutzall. Sabertooth is also a great company. These ones are known to be quick stock removal burrs. Now, the downside to these is that they do not leave an even finish on wood. And what that means is you're going to need to use either hand tools or another type of finish to smooth the surface once carved with these toothed burrs. That said, I do like to use these I use these more than probably any other burr, just for the simple fact of I'm usually carving with burrs to end with hand tools, right? So if I'm ever carving with burrs, it's so that, well, first of all, it's because of larger scale. Most of the time I'm using I'm carving a bigger project. And then I have hand tools that I want to eventually get to, but I'm using the power tools as kind of an intermediary or a roughen stage. And so I usually end up using the rougher carving burrs, and then I finish with the hand tools. But if you are using only power carving tools, they actually make toothed carving burrs that are finer. So there's a whole gradient of tooth, and there's extra coarse. This one's a medium grit. Here's a very coarse grit. These are actually attachments, cups, they call them, for the die grinder here, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But, here's a fine one, right? So we get the idea. You get finer. We don't need to go on. The second type, let's go into the second type of burr that I use most frequently here, is called the single cut carbide burr. Now, typically they're carbide. Single cut means they have one parallel line after another, running throughout the tool. Some of them are very coarse and cut more aggressively, remove more stock, and are therefore harder to control. I should say that on a note, as far as safety is concerned, these more coarse bits, basically across the board, with exception to our final contestant, which you can stick around in this video to find out about, which offers the most control. These coarser bits, the single cut and the spiky type burrs, both really grab onto the wood and they want to pull. And so you really have to hold on to the tool in order to keep it on track and control it and to articulate it and make the shapes you want. But they're great. These single cut are because they both remove material quickly, but they also, in my perspective, they also remove material a lot more smoothly. They leave a smoother finish and a more refined finish than these toothed burrs do. Here's another example of a very, very coarse single cut burr that removes material very quickly and leaves a rougher finish, but still probably not quite as rough as the tooth does. So single cut burrs are kind of this in-between stage that are both kind of the best of both worlds. They cut quickly, and yet they also tend to remove stock more quickly than the third category, which we'll get into in just a moment. But these are all just different things that you might want to experiment with, these types of burrs. Like, some people prefer the toothed burrs because they're a little easier to control in some ways. They don't tend to ride as much, and they also think of it more as like a rasp or a riffler on a fast turning grinder or Dremel. They tend to be a little bit less directional than these single cut burrs are. These single cut burrs, again, they really want to pull. They want to ride, baby. So you want to be careful with those. All right, single cut. It's good. I use them a lot. I actually probably use the tooth version more, but the single cut are ones when I used to power carve a lot more. Probably use these most often back in the days when I was only power carving, because I like that mix of fast cutting and smooth surface. All right, so the third category, right? The final category, as far as I know, these are the three main types, called cross cut or double cut. Double cut burrs offer a very controlled, smooth finish. Similar control to the toothed burrs, and yet they are much, much smoother finishing than the other categories. I should say, too, speaking of control, just because these are easier to control doesn't mean they won't walk out on you. You can see there, these scars on my wrist, or these lines. These are from a cut saw burr, actually attached to an angle grinder, a disc. That's where these come in. They're very easy to control. They're very nice to work with. In fact, Nancy Tuttle, whose work I can link in the description because it's absolutely awesome. Oh, wow, you hear that rain? It's up there. It's raining out there, wow. Uses, pretty much from my understanding, uses exclusively these double cut burrs. And I can see why, because they're really nice. They leave a great finish. And if you're going to use burrs to carve without hand tools, without gouges, chisels, and all that, you could use this effectively and then just go in with sandpaper. So there's all different sizes of burr. You know, the one that I showed you earlier, what is this called? I'm already forgetting now. A snowball? I don't know. My favorite, though, and probably the only one that I really think about or use most often, aside from the ball, which is obvious, is the flame tip. And the flame tip is so useful. You can see this one's clogged up. Which, by the way, if you want to clean a tooth burr, you can actually use a torch to burn out the wood, or a wire brush, or both, to get the fibers out of the teeth. But anyway, the flame tip is just such a useful, I don't know, I find that it's kind of an all-around beauty, because I can get into crooks and crannies. I can use the side of it. Whoa, that was a close thunder strike. I can use the side of it to kind of do broad strokes and clear large surfaces. Sorry, I just wanted to see if I could film us getting struck by lightning. So this is what it's like having ADD, I guess, right? So the flame tip is by far my favorite profile. Of course, there are others. Is this called a snowball? I have a note here. Where is it? Oh, well, that's okay. It's not working. No. Doesn't matter. We're fine. We'll make it okay. These names are unimportant. The most important thing you need to know, get the flame tip, the ball, and then this is also a really interesting one, kind of a conical shape, but longer. These are nice to have as well, and I use them very, very often. So there are others, but I tend to use them much less often. Mostly, I use these three. A ball, let me find a smaller ball here. There we go. I use a ball. Actually, usually I'll use a smaller ball than this, depending on what I'm using for carving, the size. These are the shapes I use most often, these three. And honestly, I think you could do many things with various sizes of these specific types of burrs. And I will link these in the description below. The burrs also with Cutsall, you should check them out because they're a fantastic company. One, they're what I run most of the time, but they also have a discount code, and I'll link that in the description. I think it's like you get 5% off or something, which is, it's not nothing. And yeah, so check that out. I'll link that in the description. I'll also link the tools, which I wanted to get into briefly. The things I use to spin these burrs are these tools here. So the first one is a Ryobi. Just go and get one of these if you don't have a good Dremel. I say Dremel because it's the size of, what is it, 1/8 inch? Yeah, 1/8 inch. Dremel is a company that I've used for many years, and when I finally got tired of using them because they burned out within a few months, and many friends of mine have had similar experiences whereby they use these burrs and then in no time they wear out. The Ryobi has been incredible. I actually sent one of these to my buddy recently, and he said that he has been absolutely loving it. and it's been holding up better than his Dremels. And I mention these two because they have a lot more, in my estimation, they have more power, more torque, and it seems to be, maybe it's faster, maybe it isn't, I don't know, but they seem to have more torque for sure. They don't slow down as much, and they just seem to be a firmer construction, the housing, just a better built tool. And the best part is they're cheaper than many of the comparable Dremels, the Dremel brand rotary tools. So I'll link that in the description. The maker of this one, I believe, is, or the model is RTT200. And then as far as die grinders, I'm not the person to ask. I have pretty low standards. I've been using these Chicago Electric die grinders with fantastic luck. I mean, I've been carving for 18 years, and I've probably only gone through one or two of these. And they don't burn out too much, at least in my... Maybe I'm very lucky. That could be part of it, because I know Chicago Electric isn't known for the best quality. This is just Harbor Freight. Maybe I mentioned that, I can't remember. But these things are great, and the amount of effort that it takes to get one, the cost is very low. It's like 40 or 50 bucks at least last time I checked. This is what I use. The biggest downside of these is there's no speed variation. There's just one speed, and that's go, baby. So you want to have a variable speed version of this. You're not gonna buy this model. So yeah, and there's plenty more to talk about when it comes to power carving. We could talk about it all day, but that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. So thanks for tuning in, and take your vitamins, guys. Stay dry, and God bless.